The first transmission was a whisper of static, a ghost on the frequency that no one was supposed to be listening to. It came from the Zagramos Massif, a jagged spine of rock and ice that scraped the belly of the stratosphere, a place where borders bled into one another and treaties went to die. For 72 hours, the signal pulsed, a faint, rhythmic heartbeat in the digital ether. It was the only sign of life from the wreckage of the Valkyrie, an aircraft that, officially, did not exist. From the satellite imagery, it was a splinter of obsidian against the snow, a design never seen before. No tail, swept back wings like a raptor, and a skin that seemed to drink the light. It was a phantom, and it had fallen from grace. In the dimly lit, climate-controlled quiet of the Combined Air Operations Center in Nevada, thousands of miles away, Major Anya Sharma leaned closer to her console. The glow of the screen painting, her face in shades of blue and green, her call sign Sparrow was stitched onto her flight suit, a small, unassuming bird in a room of eagles and falcons. The name felt like a relic from another life, a life before she was grounded, before the sky was a thing she watched instead of inhabited. The chatter in the room was a low hum of confidence and procedure. They'd sent a CSAR team to HH-60 Pavehawks to investigate the crash site. The prevailing theory was a catastrophic systems failure on a clandestine test flight. The pilot was presumed lost. The mission was simple: confirm no survivors, sanitize the site, and bring back whatever was left of the prototype. The lead pilot of the search team, a young swaggering captain with the call sign Raptor, radiated an almost offensive calm command. Raptor 1, we're 5 mics out from the grid. No signs of life, no thermal signatures. That signal you're tracking, gotta be a ghost, some kind of feedback loop from the damaged avionics. His voice, filtered through the comms, was smooth, dismissive. Anya felt a familiar tightening in her chest. She had been staring at the signal's data stream for hours, the raw code scrolling past her eyes. It wasn't random, it wasn't feedback. There was a pattern, a cadence, like a non-standard military cipher. It was impossibly faint, almost buried in the noise, but it was there. Command, this is Sparrow, she said, her voice cutting through the low murmur of the control room. Heads turned. It had been a long time since anyone had heard her speak up during a live op. That signal is not an echo. The pulse is repeating on a prime number sequence. It's deliberate. Silence. Then, a condescending chuckle from Lieutenant Colonel Marcus, the mission commander. Major, with all due respect, let's leave the spectral analysis to the eggheads. The team on the ground has the situation under control. The dismissal was a physical blow. She could feel the smirks from the junior officers around her. Sparrow, the grounded pilot, the ghost of a past failure, seeing patterns in the static. She was becoming a cautionary tale, but she couldn't let it go. She watched Raptor's Pavehawks descend, their rotor wash kicking up plumes of pristine snow around the silent, broken form of the Valkyrie. The ground team rappelled down, their movements crisp and professional. They swept the area, their helmet cams broadcasting a desolate scene of twisted metal and shattered carbon fiber. Cockpit's empty, a voice crackled over the comm. No body, no prints, ejection seat hasn't been fired. Survival kit is still stowed. It's like the pilot just vanished. Marcus grunted. Check for tracks. Maybe they walked away. Negative. Sir, the snow is untouched. No impressions for at least 100 yards in any direction. It's impossible. The mystery deepened, and the cold dread began to seep into the room. A pilot couldn't just evaporate. Anya ignored the commander, her fingers flying across her keyboard, isolating the faint signal and running it through a series of decryption algorithms she had designed herself. The processor's word, struggling with the fragmented data. On the main screen, Raptor was making another pass, his voice betraying a hint of frustration. Command, we've got nothing. The bird is empty, the snow is clean, we're searching for a ghost. Anya's eyes were fixed on a secondary satellite feed, a high-resolution pass that updated every 90 seconds. She saw the crash site, the 2 Pavehawks like dark beetles on a field of white, and then she saw it a flicker, a distortion in the snow about a click north of the wreckage, near a ridge of blue ice. It was almost imperceptible, a heat shimmer where there should be none. A predatore si camouflage. Colonel, she said, her voice sharp, urgent, 1 click north of the crash. There's something there, a shadow that doesn't match the terrain. Marcus sighed, his patience wearing thin. Major, it's probably a rock formation. The light plays tricks up there. No sir, she insisted, her gaze unwavering. The sun is high. There shouldn't be a shadow in that position. And it's moving. The mockery was now open. A few pilots behind her snickered. Sparrows chasing shadows. Again, the words were a whisper, but they hit her like a physical force. She felt the ghost of her last flight, the weight of the inquiry, the pity in the eyes of her superiors. They saw a broken pilot, not a strategist. They saw a liability. Ignoring them, she bypassed the junior officer at the adjacent station, her authority as a major, however tarnished, giving him pause. She routed the raw signal data to her own console, her fingers a blur. The decryption program, which had been struggling, suddenly found a key, a familiar string of code from a system she knew intimately. The screen flashed, and a single line of plain text appeared. Telemetry signature, XR7 gyroscopic stabilizer. Anya's blood ran cold. The XR7, an experimental piece of navigation gear. It was designed to function even after catastrophic system failure, a black box and a homing beacon all in one. It was a prototype, and it had only ever been installed on 2 aircraft. One was the wreck currently sitting in the Zagramos Massif. The other was the F-22 she had been flying 2 years ago. The day her career had ended. The day her wingman, a brilliant, fearless rookie with the callsign Finch, had vanished from the sky. The room had gone silent. Everyone was watching her. The telemetry signature on her screen updated, showing a location. It was moving, steadily, deliberately, away from the crash site. Not wandering, not lost. It was moving with purpose. It was heading east, directly toward the Al-Qadim fortress, a known stronghold for a regional warlord, a place from which no one ever returned. The mockery died, replaced by a stunned, confused silence. Anya stood up, her voice clear and steady, cutting through the tension in the room like a knife. "Colonel," she said, her eyes locked on the tactical map. "Our pilot isn't missing, they're not running, they're hunting." The ghost on the grid had a name, and it was a piece of her own past, a past she thought she had buried. The signal wasn't a distress call, it was a breadcrumb, and Anya was the only one in the world who knew how to read it. The mystery of the vanished pilot had just become intensely personal, and for the first time in 2 years, the Sparrow was ready to fly, even if it was from a chair thousands of miles away. The hunt was on. The sky, vast and unforgiving, held its breath. The silence that followed her words was heavier than any sound. It was the silence of disbelief giving way to a terrifying new reality. The rules of the game had just been rewritten, not by a commander or a pilot in the sky, but by a ghost in the machine, a ghost that Anya knew by name. The weight of her past was no longer an anchor, it was a compass, and it was pointing directly into the heart of enemy territory. The atmosphere in the command center had undergone a seismic shift. The casual confidence had evaporated, replaced by a tense electric focus. The smirks were gone, the whispers silenced. Every eye was now on Major Anya Sharma, the grounded pilot they had dismissed moments before. Her declaration hung in the air, heavy and implacable. Colonel Marcus stared at the tactical map, his face a mask of grim disbelief. A pilot, after surviving a crash in the most hostile environment on Earth, was moving towards the enemy. It defied every protocol, every survival instinct. "Explain, Major," Marcus commanded, his voice tight. "The XR7, Anya began, her tone measured, her mind racing. "It's a passive navigation system. After the main avionics go down, it activates, recording the user's movements and sending out a microburst signal every few minutes. The signal is encrypted with a unique biometric key. The key on that signal, it belongs to Lieutenant Eva Rest." She paused, letting the name settle in the room. Call sign, Finch. A wave of recognition rippled through the senior officers. The Rostova incident, 2 years ago. A training exercise over the Nevada desert gone horribly wrong. Major Sharma, the celebrated instructor, and her prodigious trainee, Lieutenant Rostova, an unexplained system failure in Rostova's F-22. The aircraft went down in a remote canyon. They found the wreckage, but no body. Rostova was declared Mia, presumed dead. Major Sharma, the flight lead, took the fall. The inquiry cited undue stress on an experimental airframe. Her wings were clipped, her career relegated to a console in the dark. "That's impossible," Marcus said, shaking his head. "Rostova is dead." "The data says otherwise," Anya countered, pointing to the screen. "That is her biometric signature, and that is her movement pattern. She's using terrain masking techniques I taught her. She's paralleling ridges, using glacial seracs for cover. She's not lost, Colonel. She knows exactly where she is, and she knows where she's going." Reluctantly, Marcus gave the order. "Get a Reaper drone in the air. I want eyes on that signal's location. High altitude, passive observation only. I don't want them to know we're watching. As the drone was scrambled, the command center became a library of quiet, intense activity. Analysts pulled up the old files on the Rostova incident. Anya felt 100 pairs of eyes on her, their curiosity now tinged with a reluctant respect. She ignored them, her focus entirely on the stream of data from the XR7. As she watched the signal move, the past began to bleed into the present. Flashback, 2 years ago. The sun is a brilliant, searing white over the Nevada desert. 2 F-22s slice through the sky, their engines a low roar. Inside her cockpit, Anya Sparrow smiles. "All right, Finch," she says over the comm, her voice warm. "Let's see what you've got. Show me the canyon dance maneuver." "Copy, Sparrow." Ava's voice crackles back, full of youthful confidence. "But if I beat your time, you're buying the beer. In your dreams, rookie." She watches as Finch's Raptor peels away, diving into the labyrinthine network of canyons below. The grace of the aircraft is breathtaking. Eva is a natural, a pilot with an instinct for the sky that couldn't be taught. She flies with a fierce, joyful abandon. Anya had given her the call sign Finch because she was small, quick, and utterly fearless. And Anya, as the Sparrow, felt a fierce, almost maternal need to protect her, to watch over her. The memory soured, the brilliant desert sun turning harsh and cruel. The frantic call from Finch. "Sparrow, I've got a cascade failure. Flight controls are unresponsive." The alarms blaring over the comm, Anya's own desperate attempts to talk her through it. The final, garbled transmission, the sight of the smoke plume rising from the canyon floor, the silence that followed, a silence that had haunted her for 732 days. "We have visual," a drone operator announced, jolting Anya back to the present. On the main screen, a grainy, monochrome image appeared. It showed a figure, clad in a dark flight suit, moving with a fluid, predatory grace across the snow. The figure was lean, athletic, and moved with an economy of motion that spoke of years of training. They were carrying a small pack and a rifle from the Valkyrie's survival kit. The drone was too high to make out a face, but Anya didn't need to. She recognized the way Eva carried herself, the slight cant of her head as she scanned the horizon. It was Finch. The team watched, mesmerized, as Finch navigated the treacherous terrain. She moved like a ghost, leaving almost no trace. She was heading directly for the Al-Qadim fortress, a brutalist scar of concrete and steel carved into the mountainside. It was the headquarters of Tariq al-Jamil, a warlord who had carved out a fiefdom in the lawless border region, funded by smuggling and kidnapping. "It's a suicide mission," Raptor's voice cut in over the comms. His earlier swagger gone, replaced by sheer disbelief. He was holding his Pavehawk in a high orbit, watching the drone feed. "What the hell is she doing?" Anya stared at the screen, her mind a maelstrom of guilt, fear, and a dawning, horrifying understanding. Finch wasn't on a mission. She hadn't been flying the Valkyrie as a test pilot. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. The crash 2 years ago, what if she had survived? What if she had been captured then? The Zagramos Massif was thousands of miles from Nevada, but Al-Jamil's network was global. What if he had gotten his hands on a downed American pilot and kept her hidden for 2 years? A secret bargaining chip. And the Valkyrie. What if it wasn't a test flight? What if it was a rescue mission? A failed one. Finch wasn't hunting. She was running. She had been a prisoner, and this was a desperate break for freedom. The crash of the Valkyrie must have been her chance. He wasn't moving towards the fortress. She was trying to get around it, using it as a landmark in a landscape she didn't know, trying to reach the more populated valleys on the other side. The XR7 wasn't a breadcrumb for a mission. It was a desperate, silent scream for help. A signal she prayed someone, somewhere, would recognize. A signal she prayed Anya would recognize. "Colonel," Anya said, her voice strained. "Change of assessment. She's not an asset on a mission. She's an evader, a 2-year-old POW making a run for it." The implication was staggering. An American pilot, held captive for 2 years, completely off the books. It was a political nightmare of the highest order. As if on cue, the signal on Anya's screen stopped. The dot that represented Finch froze just a few hundred meters from the fortress's outer perimeter. On the drone feed, they saw why. A patrol, 4 men on snowmobiles, had intercepted her. They had come out of a hidden crevasse, cutting off her path. There was no fight. Finch was exhausted, outnumbered. She dropped her rifle, raising her hands slowly. The figures on the screen were too small to see detail, but the body language was universal. The surrender, the capture. They watched, in stark silence as the patrol forced Finch onto one of the snowmobiles and sped towards the fortress gates. The massive steel doors groaned open, swallowing them whole before grinding shut again. The mission was over. The ghost had been caught. Reaper is bingo fuel, the drone operator reported tonelessly, returning to base. Bring it home, Colonel, Marcus ordered, his voice heavy with defeat. He ran a hand over his face, the weight of the situation crashing down on him. Raptor RTB. The mission is scrubbed. We'll let the diplomats handle it from here. No, Anya whispered, the word AROR. Nerve. Then louder, her voice ringing with defiance. No. She lunged for the drone control console, shoving the operator aside. Her fingers flew across the controls, overriding the return to base command. Alarms blared. Officers shouted. Major, what in God's name are you doing? Marcus roared. We can't. Leave her there, Anya yelled back, her eyes wild. She was no longer a grounded officer. She was a flight lead, and her wingman was down behind enemy lines. I'm not losing her again. She pushed the drone's camera to its maximum zoom, forcing it into a tight low-altitude pass over the fortress. Ignoring the risk of detection, the image was grainy, distorted, but it was enough. She was looking for a way in, for a weakness, for a chance. Two military policemen moved towards her, their faces grim. Major Sharma, you are relieved of your station. Step away from the console. Anya ignored them, her entire world narrowed to the flickering screen. She had broken protocol. She had disobeyed a direct order. She had thrown her career away in a single, desperate act of defiance. But as the MPs took her by the arms, pulling her away from the controls, she saw something. A heat signature from a ventilation shaft on the roof, an unguarded access point, a flaw. They could put her in a cell, but they couldn't stop her from thinking. They couldn't stop her from planning. The seed of a rescue, an impossible, insane gambit, was already taking root in her mind. They had taken her sky, but they couldn't take her mind. And for the first time in 2 years, the Sparrow wasn't just a ghost in the machine. She was a weapon. The silence in the command center was now a suffocating blanket. The drone feed was gone, replaced by a sterile tactical map. The ghost of Eva Finch Ristova had been captured, and with her, the fragile hope that had flickered to life in the room. Major Anya Sharma sat in a sterile briefing room, two stoic military policemen standing guard outside the door. She wasn't under arrest. Not yet. She was under review, a bureaucratic purgatory that felt more like a cage. But her mind was far from captive. It was soaring over the Zagramos Massif, circling the Al-Qadim fortress, meticulously mapping its defenses. The image from the drone, that fleeting glimpse of a thermal anomaly, was burned into her memory. A ventilation shaft on the western battlement, directly above the section of the fortress they'd seen Finch being taken to. It was a long shot, a sliver of a possibility, but it was all she had. For the next few hours, she worked her mind a whirlwind of calculations and strategies. She didn't need a console. She had spent 2 years studying contingency plans, enemy fortifications, and infiltration tactics. It was all she had done, channeling her grounded frustration into a monastic devotion to the art of war from a distance. She sketched a schematic of the fortress on a napkin from her untouched meal tray using a borrowed pen. She detailed guard patrol routes based on archival satellite data, estimated response times, and pinpointed the location of the barracks and the motor pool. She identified a 3-minute window every day at 0300 local time, when the fortress switched its primary communication systems to a backup generator for maintenance, creating a brief, localized sensor blackout. It was a plan born of desperation and brilliance, a surgeon's strike that was equal parts insane and plausible. Her guard changed. The new MP was a young sergeant who looked at her not with condemnation, but with a flicker of awe. They're all talking about you out there, ma'am, he said quietly. About the pilot, Lieutenant Rostova. Just get me Colonel Marcus, Anya replied, her voice flat. Tell him I know how to get her out. The sergeant hesitated, then nodded. An hour later, the door opened. It wasn't just Colonel Marcus. With him was Captain Raptor Davies, his face etched with the tension that had replaced his earlier bravado. He held a tablet in his hand. They're interrogating her, Raptor said without preamble, his voice low. Intel picked up chatter. Aljamil thinks she was the pilot of the Valkyrie. He thinks she's a high-value asset with knowledge of next-generation stealth tech. He doesn't know she's been his prisoner for 2 years. He's trying to ransom her. This changed everything. Finch wasn't just a prisoner. She was a target. Aljamil would grow frustrated when she couldn't provide the information he wanted. Her life was now on a clock. My plan, Anya said, pushing the napkin across the table. It'll work. Marcus picked it up, his expression skeptical. He studied the crude drawing. Raptor leaned over his shoulder. As they looked, their skepticism slowly began to melt away, replaced by a grudging admiration. The level of detail was astonishing. The timing, the precision, the sheer audacity of ITT was a masterpiece of tactical planning. A single pavehawk insertion via the western ventilation shaft during the comms blackout, Marcus murmured, tracing the lines with his finger. A 4-man extraction team. It's crazy. The chances of success are better than zero. Anya finished for him. Better than leaving her to die. You send in a full assault, and Aljamil executes her before the first boot hits the ground. This has to be a ghost operation. In and out before they even know what happened. Raptor looked up from the napkin, his eyes meeting Anita's. He had been the one to dismiss her, to call her signal a ghost. Now he saw the truth. She wasn't a has-been, she was a visionary. I'll fly the mission, he said, his voice firm, but I need you in my ear. I need you guiding me. You're the only one who sees the whole board. The moment was a turning point. The hotshot pilot, the face of the new generation, was deferring to the grounded veteran. He was becoming her advocate, her weapon. The final barrier was Marcus. He paced the small room, the weight of command heavy on his shoulders. A sanctioned mission was impossible. It would be an act of war, a diplomatic catastrophe, but an unsanctioned one. If it failed, they would all be crucified. He, Anya, Raptor, their careers would be the least of their worries. He stopped pacing, and looked at Anya, his gaze piercing. Why, Major, why risk everything for this? For a pilot who was declared dead 2 years ago. Anya met his gaze without flinching. For the first time, she let the wall around her crumble, not with emotion, but with the cold hard steel of conviction, because her call sign is Finch, and mine is Sparrow. When I gave her that name, I told her it was my job to watch over the smaller birds, to guide them home. On the day she went down, I failed. I was grounded, investigated, and pushed aside. But I never stopped watching. I owe her a debt. We, as a service, owe her a debt. We don't leave our people behind. Not then, and not now. Her voice didn't plead. It stated a fact, as fundamental as gravity. It was the warrior's creed, the pilot's promise. In that moment, Marcus didn't see a disgraced officer. He saw a commander. He saw the fire that had made her one of the best pilots of her generation, a fire that hadn't been extinguished, only banked. He stood in silence for a long moment, the fate of 3 careers and 1 life resting on his decision. He looked at the napkin, then at Raptor's determined face, and finally at Anya's unwavering eyes. He picked up his radio. Sergeant, stand down. Major Sharma is with me. He turned back to Anya, his face set like stone. This conversation never happened. There is no official mission. Captain Davies is taking a pavehawk on a training exercise near the designated coordinates. If he runs into trouble, there will be no support, no rescue. He paused, his eyes boring into hers. You will have tactical command of this exercise from the auxiliary control room. You will not be on the official record. If this goes south, you are never involved. He handed her a keycard. Get your pilot back, Major. The words were a release, an absolution. The cage door had opened. Anya took the keycard, her hand steady. The trust was fragile, the stakes impossibly high, but it was real. She was back in the fight, not in the cockpit, but where she was needed most, as the architect of an impossible rescue, the mind of the operation. The Sparrow was no longer just watching. She was about to guide the Raptor into the heart of the storm. The sky was waiting. The roar of the HH-60 Pavehawk's twin engines was a physical presence in the auxiliary control room, a deep guttural vibration that seemed to resonate in Anya's very bones. On the main screen, a helmet cam feed showed the world from Captain Raptor Davies's perspective, a dizzying blur of snow and rock, illuminated by the ghostly green glow of the cockpit instruments. The air was thick with the smell of ozone and stale coffee. Anya sat at the command console, a headset clamped over her ears, her face illuminated by the glow of a dozen monitors. She was a conductor orchestrating a deadly symphony thousands of miles away. Sparrow, this is Raptor 1. Davies's voice crackled in her ear, calm and professional, but with an undercurrent of high-stakes tension. Approaching waypoint Alpha, 5 mics out from the objective. Weather is clear, visibility unlimited. Copy, Raptor, Anya replied, her own voice a study in control. She felt a strange sense of calm, the chaotic emotions of the past few days solidifying into a focus. You are green across the board. Your window opens in 3 minutes. Go dark now. Raptor is dark, he confirmed. On the screen, the Pavehawk's external lights blinked out, and it became a phantom, a shadow against the moonlit snow. Flying that, its advanced avionics and Raptor's skill keeping it just feet above the treacherous terrain. Anya's eyes darted between monitors, satellite imagery, thermal readings, and the encrypted feed from Raptor's team. She was the mission's nerve center, her mind processing a torrent of information. In a dark, damp cell deep inside the Alkadim fortress, Eva Finch Rostova sat against a cold stone wall. Her interrogation had been brutal, her body ached, but her spirit was a defiant, burning ember. She had given them nothing but name, rank, and serial number, a mantra she repeated until her voice was raw. She didn't know if anyone was coming. Hope was a dangerous luxury, but as she listened to the rhythmic drip of water in the corner of her cell, she thought she heard something else, a faint, rhythmic thumping that was less a sound and more a feeling, a vibration in the stone. A helicopter, 2 mics, Anya said into her headset. Comes blackout window is open. You have exactly 180 seconds. Execute. Executing. Raptor confirmed. The Pavehawk flared, its speed dropping to a near hover beside the western battlement. The side door slid open. 4 commandos, clad in black, rappelled down with silent fluid efficiency, their boots touching the stone roof without a sound. They moved to the ventilation shaft Anya had identified. A small, shaped charge blew the grate inwards with a muffled thump. The team disappeared into the darkness below. Anya held her breath, her world shrinking to the helmet cam of the lead commando, call sign Breaker. The feed showed a dark, narrow shaft. They descended quickly, their movements economical and precise. They emerged into a maintenance corridor, empty. So far, Anya's plan was flawless. They moved swiftly towards the detention block, their suppressed weapons at the ready. Then, it went wrong. As they rounded a corner, they came face to face with a 2-man patrol. Not on Anya's schematic, not part of the known rotation. There was a moment of shocked silence, and then the corridor erupted in a chaos of suppressed gunfire and shouted alarms. The element of surprise was gone. Sparrow, we are compromised. Breaker yelled over the the sound of gunfire punctuating his words. Engaging multiple hostiles. The whole damn fortress is waking up. In her cell, Finch heard the gunfire. It wasn't the random, celebratory firing she was used to hearing from the guards. This was controlled, professional, it was close. Hope, fierce and blinding surged through her. She wasn't waiting to be rescued. She was part of the mission. She pulled a thin, flexible piece of metal from the hem of her flight suit, a lockpick she had fashioned from a cot spring and had been hiding for months. Her fingers, though numb with cold, were steady. She had practiced this 1,000 times in the dark. The lock clicked open. She slipped out into the corridor. Guards were running past her cell, their attention focused on the firefight. Down the hall, she moved in the opposite direction, a ghost in the chaos. She was no longer a captive. She was a soldier. Raptor, they're pinned down, Anya said, her voice tight with urgency. The extraction team is taking heavy fire from the main barracks. They're being boxed in. On the tactical map, red icons representing enemy forces were swarming the commando's position. The plan was collapsing. The blackout window was closing. Then, a new sound joined the cacophony. The deep, resonant clang of a fire alarm, followed by the hiss of the sprinkler system. In the barracks, guards were suddenly disoriented, their advance slowed by the noise and the water. Command, what the hell was that? Breaker shouted. Anya stared at her screen, confused. The fire alarm wasn't part of her plan. Then she saw it. A single, friendly blue icon had appeared on the map, originating from inside the detention block. It was Finch. She had activated the fire alarm, creating a diversion. She was drawing the enemy away from the extraction team, saving them. Breaker, your diversion is friendly, Anya relayed, a wave of pride cutting through her fear. It's our package. She's moving towards you. Link up and get to the roof. Now the commandos fought their way forward, linking up with Finch in a corridor. She had a guard's sidearm in her hand and a look of cold fury in her eyes. There were no introductions. There was no time. They fought their way back to the maintenance shaft and up to the roof, emerging into the cold night air just as Raptor brought the Pavehawk back into a hover. But they were too late. The entire fortress was now a hornet's nest. Searchlights swept the sky. Heavy machine guns on the battlements opened up, their tracers stitching fiery lines across the darkness. And then came the sound that turned Anya's blood to ice. The unmistakable, menacing hump of a heavy attack helicopter. A Mi-24 Hind, the warlord's personal gunship, was lifting off from a helipad on the far side of the fortress. Its stubby wings bristling with rocket pods. They were exposed, outgunned, trapped. Sparrow, we're not gonna make it. Raptor's voice was strained, the helicopter bucking as bullets ricocheted off its armored fuselage. The Hind is on us. We can't lift off. The line filled with static. In the control room, Anya watched in horror, her hands clenched into fists. This was it. She had failed. She had sent them all to their deaths. Then, a new voice cut through the chaos of the comm channel. It was shaky from disuse and adrenaline, but it was clear and ringing with an authority that defied her situation. Raptor, this is Finch. Get your team on my 6, I'll cover you. Before Anya or Raptor could process what she had said, the helmet cam feed from Breaker, who was crouched on the roof, swung wildly. It captured an image so unbelievable it seemed like a hallucination. Finch was no longer with the team. She was sprinting across the exposed rooftop, dodging a hail of gunfire, heading not for Raptor's Pavehawk, but for a second, smaller helicopter parked on the helipad near them, a sleek, black MD-500, the warlord's personal transport. They watched, breathless, as she wrenched open the cockpit door, threw herself inside, and her hands flew across the controls. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a high-pitched whine and a surge of power, the helicopter's rotors began to turn. The captive was no longer a captive. She was a pilot, and she had just stolen the enemy's own machine. The auxiliary control room was utterly silent. The only sound, the frantic hum of electronics and Anya's own ragged breathing. On the main screen, the unthinkable was happening. The sleek, black MD-500, a hornet of a helicopter, lifted off the rooftop helipad, piloted by a woman who hadn't touched a flight stick in over 2 years. Eva Finch Rostova, the ghost, the captive, was now an avenging angel in a stolen gunship. She banked the helicopter sharply, its miniguns spitting fire, not in a panicked spray, but in controlled, disciplined bursts that raked the battlement, forcing the heavy machine gun crews to dive for cover. The sheer, audacious brilliance of it left everyone, from Raptor in his Pavehawk to the analysts in Nevada, momentarily speechless. Finch was creating a window. Raptor, what are you waiting for? Go. Anya's voice shattered the paralysis. Get airborne, now. Raptor snapped back to action. We're lifting. Go, go, go. The Pavehawk surged upwards, its commandos firing from the open door, providing covering fire for their unexpected savior. But the real threat was the Hind gunship, a flying tank that was now lumbering into position, its nose-mounted cannon swiveling to target the smaller, more agile MD-500. Finch, this is Sparrow. You hear me? Anya's voice was a lifeline of calm. In the storm of chaos, she wasn't just a mission controller anymore. She was a flight lead, and her wingman was in the fight of her life. Loud and clear, Sparrow. Finch's voice came back, strained but steady. It's been a while. Just like old times, Anya said, her fingers flying across her console, pulling up the schematics for a Hindy. She knew its weaknesses, its blind spots. The Hind's targeting system is slow to track targets at close range. Get in his face. Don't let him get a missile lock. Copy. Getting cozy. The two helicopters began a deadly aerial ballet. The Hind was a beast of power and armor, but the MD-500, in Finch's hands, was a scalpel. She danced around the larger gunship, a flurry of impossible maneuvers that defied the helicopter's performance envelope. She was using techniques Anya had taught her, pushing the aircraft to its absolute limit. The pilots in the control room watched, their faces filled with a mixture of terror and awe. They were witnessing something that would be told in flight. Schools for generations. He's trying to get you in his cannon sights, Anya warned, watching the satellite feed. He's anticipating your break. Do the opposite. Go under him. Under him. Are you crazy? Finch grunted, the helicopter groaning. Under the strain. Trust me, Anya said. Finch didn't hesitate. She dropped the MD-500, diving directly beneath the Hind's belly, a blind spot for its main weapons. As she passed under, she fired a volley from her own guns upwards, peppering the Hind's unarmored undercarriage. Sparks flew, and the Hind shuddered, its attack momentarily broken. Raptor, you're clear, Finch yelled. Get out of here. Not without you, Raptor retorted, his Pavehawk hovering at a safe distance, its door gunners providing what little support they could. That's an order, Captain, Finch snapped back, her voice ringing with the authority of a pilot in her element. Anya intervened. Raptor, she's right. Get your team to safety. We'll bring her home. Reluctantly, Raptor banked the Pavehawk and sped away from the fortress, climbing towards the safety of the high mountains. The duel continued. Finch was a master. but she was in a scout helicopter facing a dedicated gunship. It was a fight she couldn't win, only survive. Sparrow, I am running out of ammo and ideas, Finch panted, her helicopter jinking to avoid a stream of cannon fire. Anya's eyes scanned the tactical map, her mind racing. The canyon, she said, to your west. The narrow one we used for training runs. Lure him in there, he won't follow. It's suicide. He will, Anya insisted. His ego is on the line. You've embarrassed him, make him chase you. Finch broke off the engagement, feigning damage, and streaked towards the narrow slit in the mountainside. As Anya predicted, the hind, hungry for the kill, followed. The two helicopters plunged into the canyon, the rock walls a claustrophobic blur on either side. He's faster in a straight line, Finch reported, the hind closing the distance. I can't outrun him. Don't outrun him, Anya said, her voice dropping to an intense, focused whisper. Outfly him. Remember the canyon dance. On my mark, she watched the two icons on her screen converge. 3, 2, 1 mark. Finch executed the maneuver perfectly. She slammed the collective down, dropping her altitude, while simultaneously kicking the rudder hard left. The MD-500 pivoted on a dime, the rotor blades missing the canyon wall by inches. The hind pilot, caught by surprise, tried to follow, but his larger, less responsive aircraft couldn't make the turn. The tip of its main rotor blade struck the rock wall with a sickening shriek of tearing metal. The hind faltered, its flight becoming unstable. It careened into the opposite wall, erupting in a massive fireball that lit up the canyon like a second sun. Silence, Finch. Eva, talk to me, Anya pleaded, her heart pounding against her ribs. For a terrifying moment, there was only static. Then, a cough. I'm here, Sparrow, a little shaken, but I'm here. Finch landed the battered MD-500 on a snowy plateau just as Raptor's Pavehawk circled back to meet them. The rescue was complete. The flight back to the forward operating base was conducted in near silence, the adrenaline giving way to a profound, bone-deep exhaustion. When the Pavehawk landed, the entire base seemed to be waiting on the tarmac. As Finch stepped out, assisted by Raptor, she looked frail and exhausted, but her eyes scanned the crowd, searching for one person. Anya was there, walking out from the command tent. She had broken quarantine, protocol be damned. The two women met in the middle of the tarmac. No words were exchanged. They simply embraced, a silent acknowledgement of the debt paid, the promise kept. On Anya's flight suit, the small embroidered sparrow seemed to catch the morning light, no longer a mark of shame, but a beacon of loyalty, brilliance, and an unbreakable bond forged in the sky. Months later, Major Anya Sharma stood before a new class of rookie pilots in a cavernous hangar. Her grounding order had been permanently rescinded. Next to her stood Captain Eva Rostova, her new flight instructor, looking sharp and confident in her own flight suit. The story of their ordeal was now a quiet legend, a classified epic whispered in briefing rooms and bars. They called it the Sparrow's Gambit. Your call sign is more than a name, Anya told the young, eager faces looking up at her. It's a promise. To the pilot on your wing, and to the ones who came before you. She paused, her gaze drifting towards the open hangar doors, to the vast, endless blue beyond. It's a promise that no matter how far you fall, you are never out of the fight, and you will never, ever be left behind. The sky was no longer a ceiling. It was a promise, and for the Sparrow and the Finch, it was finally home.